Oh hey, welcome to my camp in the 5th layer. That bastard Bondrude won't let me in the Ido Front. He said I didn't have the right credentials, and that I needed to file some paperwork, and that white whistle isn't real, you made it out of Crayola model magic.
Oh yeah? Oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
So I'm waiting here until I can get in. I've been doing some thinking, though, about the nature of the Abyss. Why do we want to go down here? What's down here? All that fun stuff. I've got theories. Other people have theories. And we'll be talking about them around the campfire. I stole some rations from Bondrude if you want some. It's either this or that nasty fish, and I hate looking at that thing. So, it's your pick. Pull up a seat and grab a bite to eat. Let's get talking. By the way, you should be caught up with the series before hopping in. There's spoilers abound, so make sure you're up to date on the manga and the anime. Oh yeah, one more little thing. I've had a bunch of comments on my various videos from people telling me that they like to put on my videos while drawing, which is something I like to do when drawing. I'll put on someone's video essay, and it's just nice to have something to occupy me. It feels like someone's telling me a story while drawing. The thing is, if the videos have text in them, I will miss them because I'm looking elsewhere. And I tend to put, like, certain text on screen in my videos. So, whenever text pops up on screen, whether it's my own commentary or manga panels with text, I'll play this little sound as a heads up so you don't miss anything. I really hope it doesn't become annoying. I just want to give a little courtesy to the artists and people who are doing other work who also want to make sure that they don't miss anything. On top of that, I would love to see whatever you're drawing. If you want to tag me in your artwork, please do so. I would love to see it. I am on Tumblr, Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram under the same username as here. If you do, leave a comment and say which site you posted it on, and I'll check it out. Besides Tumblr, I don't really browse the other websites. I just post my art there and dip. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, and I would love to see whatever you're drawing. There are going to be various visual motifs that will be mentioned in this video, and I want to assign names to them so we're all on the same page. I also want to see how they connect with each other and what through line we can draw. First off, the form of the essential part. This refers to this diamond or four-pointed star shape that can be found in relics such as the Star Compass, the Cradle of Desire, on Reg's cape before his ascent, and the Unheard Bell. It is also connected to the Ring of the Essence, which was previously known as the Pivotal Ring within the fandom. There's a term used in both the names for the form of the essential part as well as the Ring of the Essence, ski, which connects the two. Although the ring does not have this diamond motif, as far as we can see, the same word is used. I personally think the phrase pivotal ring is cooler than Ring of the Essence or Essential Ring, but with this translation, and knowing that they share the same character, we have a connection between these two elements. Reg's incinerator is also referred to as, quote, the light of the essence, or the light of the essential part, and though the light doesn't have the diamond shape anywhere, his cape actually did at one point. I suppose an issue I have with even assigning this diamond shape this specific name is that I don't think it's been 100% confirmed that the term form of the essential part refers to the diamond shape, so it presupposes that any mention of essential part or essence is related to any depiction of this diamond shape. However, I am fairly sure that this is the intention, so I'm going ahead with it. The iris sphere is a shape that can be found on the necklace that Rico finds on the ground right before meeting Reg, as well as whatever the forward expedition party found in the second layer, on a page in chapter 66 after the Gran's hymn from Hariyomari's song, and possibly on the forehead of this stranger at the end of that chapter. This odd page on chapter 66 could be the FEP's findings. I'll also refer to these items as the blue necklace, the FEP cavern, or FEP finding, the wharf eyelet, and the survivor tattoo as placeholder names. And the shape as a whole as the iris sphere, because it kind of reminds me of an eye. The Maiden keyhole is a shape that's sort of this oblong thing with tags at the top and bottom with a dot on each side. It's found on Prushka's carved white whistle form, as well as a visual representation of the Shrine Maiden. There are similar shapes on the Princess Bosom relic, though those don't have the dots to each side of the mouth. The thousand-man pins could also be seen as having a similar visual motif, though I think that this is even less similar. I am not really sure if I can connect these two relics to this shape. I'm calling this shape the Maiden keyhole because it's associated with the depiction of the Shrine Maiden, as well as vaguely looking like a keyhole. The Doni keyhole is a straightforward and typical keyhole shape that appears on Liza's White Whistle and the Mask of Doni, the delver who died to become Liza's White Whistle. Eternal Fortune petals are quite possibly the easiest motif to spot. It's very straightforward. It's the shape of the Eternal Fortunes. White flowers with 5 petals, and there's a distinction between the inner part of the petals and the outer part. Though these aren't all the same symbol, I'm combining all usage of glowing patterns with radial symmetry into one category, which I will call relic sigils. These are sigils that appear on relics or things related to relics, such as Nanachi's mermaid burp, Reg's helmet, and Fopta's eye. Notably, the mermaid burp's design and the design on Reg's helmet change after usage. However, I am not quite sure if we have yet to see it change with Fopta's eye or if it appeared more than once on her. The tribal markings refer to these striped marks that are painted on the bodies of the tribal members that have come of age, as well as on Reg and what we've seen of Clawbot. They're rectangular and darker than the skin tones of whoever they're on, and they seem to be symmetrical. The eclipsing sphere is this crescent and sphere shape, which is going to be important to a later theory. It's a crescent overtaking a central circle shape. So here's a rapid-fire listing of just neat little things that I don't have much to say on, other than this is intriguing, but I don't have any theories. I call it my menagerie of mini mysteries. The unexplained structures throughout the Abyss are my absolute lifeblood. There are the burial towers in the first layer, which are said to hold mass graves that date back 2,000, 4,000, and 6,000 years. Essentially, the same structure is being used during 3 different cycles. The tower itself holds the most recent cycle, while the tomb underneath it is from the 4,000-year cycle, and another tomb under that is the 6,000-year group. It sort of reminds me of the real-life story of Rupkund Lake, a lake in India where 2 or 3 various groups of people died in 2 distinct events, separated by, quite literally, 1,000 years. Milo Rossi of Mini Minuteman has a fascinating video on the subject. I highly recommend watching it, and his stuff in general. I really love it. So, the idea of a tower on top of a tomb on top of another tomb is so intriguing. What's drawing the ancient people of Orth to bury their dead here specifically? The dead having their hands clasped in prayer is something that at first seems like just how the ancient Orthians buried their dead. I want to say that in his Windover Bog Bodies video, Rossi also talks about different burial practices, so check that out too. Is this segment just an excuse for me to say a YouTube channel I really like? I guess so. I would also like to direct you to a still living group of people within Maiden Abyss with symbolic praying hands. The Umbra Hands Bondrewd squad are also known as the Praying Hands. It has to do with how the words are written in Japanese that I don't fully understand. So it's like furigana written over kanji or something. It has to do with like, this is how the word is written, but this is how the word is pronounced, I think. So the Umbra Hands are written in kanji as praying hands, but supposed to be pronounced as Umbra Hands. Similarly, the white-coated Umbra Hands, the shrouds such as Galache and Rimeo, have kanji that are written as funeral attire, but pronounced as shroud. If there are any people in the audience who understand this writing thing, please explain in the comments. I do not understand it beyond, like, it's kind of like a double meaning thing. So, Bondrewd obviously is researching the 2,000-year cycle. He's the Lord of Dawn and wants to welcome in the new cycle. His naming of the praying hands and the funeral attire wearing shrouds feels a bit reflective of his research. Perhaps he sees the Umbra Hands as these necessary deaths during this cycle, and these special shrouds are the survivors who attend the funeral. Beyond this connection, I'm not sure what else to say about the burial tower and the idea of these praying hands. I just think that it's a neat bit of mystery, and I wonder why the ancient Orthians went into the abyss to construct a tower, given the construction would hit them with the curse over and over. But seeing as they're on an island with limited space, I would think like, oh yeah, I guess burying them in the abyss would, save like grave space or something. Anyway, there's definitely this recurring motif of hands clasped in prayer. More mysterious structures. The wind-riding windmills in the first layer, the ancient pirate ship in the third, and the clock tower in the sixth are all so intriguing to me. Building windmills in the first layer doesn't seem like that daunting of a task, but how did a ship get embedded in the side of a third layer? I've seen people speculate that it must be teleportation that transported the ancient ship into the rock. They cite the ship Geronimo and his crew found that had allegedly seen the bottom of the abyss and state that the ship must have been teleported out. Therefore, the ancient ship in the third layer may have messed up with its teleportation. I think the validity of Geronimo's story lies on how much one believes him. I don't know if he's necessarily a reliable narrator. I mean, Geronimo is a predatory child abuser. How much of his story is true and how much of it was said to make him seem more impressive and intimidating? In any case, I think teleportation is a bit of a stretch, seeing as we haven't seen any other instance of it so far, and we don't even know if these instances are teleportation. That still opens up the question of how the survivor's ship escaped, and how the ancient ship got in the third layer like that. Though, for our last mysterious structure, I am absolutely enamored with the clock towers in the sixth layer. The design itself is absolutely gorgeous. Like, I really want to figure out how to draw something half as impressive as these spreads. These clock towers are absolutely massive monoliths that jut out of the ground at odd angles with these circular faces that look like clocks. You can actually spot the hands of a broken clock jutting out of the face. All of the buildings that can be seen in the spread are also haphazardly sticking out, some pointing upside down, some at diagonals. Humans who are impacted by the curse could not build these. Humans in general would struggle to build them at all, curse or no curse. Rico points out crystals that are embedded in these structures. She speculates that the ground it was built on had been swallowed up, the city could have been fossilized, or possibly it was all a mirage created by the crystals. Structure-wise, I'm reminded of Orth in the first layer, and my hunch is to say that the sixth layer is a sort of remix of the first. I don't think it's just the mangaka's art style leading him to draw similar structures. We've seen different architecture in the Seeker Camp, in Nanachi's hut, and the Ido Front. He has the range. I feel like this is a sort of intentional mockery, perhaps, of Orth in the first layer, or perhaps both Orth, the first layer, and the sixth layer are trying to recreate the actual Golden City, and the closer they are to the Golden City, the more accurate it could be. See, I do not think that the sixth layer or Iraburu are the fabled Golden City, but by a twist of fate and irony, Ganja created their own iteration of it. The true Golden City, where it's theorized Reg originated from, has gotta be at the bottom of the abyss. And I suspect Liza is going to be there when we get to her. Anyway, I don't know what to make of these structures, I just think they're neat. I think being a fan of My Little Pony has trained me to be rather vigilant of noticing background characters. A character's personality and role can be discerned by design, body language, all sorts of fun stuff. I mean, it was a fandom built on creating entire backstories for background characters. I bring this up because there is a certain member of Ganja who has even been given a name by the mangaka, has this design that hints at something pretty darn important. This is Haone. She can be seen in the background a few times. Notice anything important? Yeah, she has the same tribal markings as the adults of Idum Yui's tribe. Not every adult in the tribe has these markings. The old man who examined Vueko's star compass didn't seem to have them, so perhaps only certain people are deemed worthy of getting them? But this random member of Ganja? There are two possibilities. Haone is a stray tribe member picked up by the Ganja, or she got tattoos during her brief time with the tribe before the group descended. And neither of those possibilities make any sense. There's also the third option that she had those tattoos to begin with, but it feels entirely too coincidental that a member of Ganja, a group of outsiders, would already have the same type of tattoo as the people that the outsider group meets. Haone being a stray tribe member picked up by Ganja defeats the purpose of Ido being Ganja's guide. The whole flashback arc is dedicated to the themes of this useless, outcasted girl being the most important key to survival. If there was this adult who was picked up from the Orth tribe to join Ganja, Ido would have been redundant. I'd also think that it would have been mentioned somewhere that another tribe member joined them. Haone also wears clothes just like the Ganja members. Meanwhile, Ido still wore the same, I think, pelt. Haone looks like she could be the sister of Elu, another background character, which further leads to the idea that she's from Ganja. Now, did Haone just visit the Orth tribe's tattoo parlor after seeing everyone's sick tats to get some of her own? That'd be a pretty funny answer, but the way Ido talks about the tattoos sort of implied that they're a rite of passage. Considering that the old man doesn't have them, and he seems important enough to be a sort of guide to Baelaf and Voiko, I would assume that some special criteria has to be met to get them. My crazy out there joke answer is that obviously Haone went on a crazy side quest between the time that Ganja landed on the shore and when they took off for the Abyss. She went through trials and tribulations, emerging successful, and gaining the status as an honorary tribe member. And it all happened in the span of like 6 hours or something. I think that would be really funny. She just like speed ran becoming important. I like that idea. Or, wait a minute. Light hair. Female. Tribal markings. Could Haone be Clawbot? It all makes sense. It fits right into the theory that the Aubade / true residents used to be human, something that I really subscribe to. Haone went down with Ganja to the 6th layer, but went past that, going to the true Golden City, and Clawbot only has 1 stripe per cheek. Haone has 2, like the little kitty whiskers. God damn it. So as I'm editing, I found the singular panel that you can find this character in, and it's before they arrive on Orth, and she already has the tattoos. So I guess she's just like that. A little disappointed that I can't just imagine that she went on like a short little adventure and just speedran becoming accepted into the tribe. And that concludes my menagerie of mini mysteries. I highly recommend checking out Mini Minuteman's channel if you like history and archaeology. That stuff's always been fascinating to me, and making theories about Maiden Abyss sort of feels like amateur fictional archaeology, if that makes sense, or anthropology, or something like that. I don't know. I'm an art student. I just think that, worldly cultures, whether they be real or fictional, I just think that's neat. These mysteries were just little things that stuck out to me. I'm not sure we'll get any definitive explanation of them, considering we've moved past these arcs. It's a bit sad to know that we won't get the answers cleared up, but at the same time, it's always fun to speculate. And I feel like there's a lot of, hints that could lead towards a tangible answer that can work for certain people. So, what are your thoughts? The discussion of souls in Maiden Abyss is complex and there's a lot to cover. This section will talk about any and all mentions of souls. First off, we have the funerary practices in Orth. When a person passes away, they're cremated and the remaining ashes are tossed off into the abyss, mixed in with petals of eternal fortunes. The prominent religion of the abyss is referred to as the Abyssal Faith. The people of the faith believe that when someone dies, they return to the bottom of the earth.
かいつまんで言うと、アビスで命を落としたら、魂が星の底に帰っていって、命を願った者のところへ形を変えて旅に出る。
The soul is believed to be returned to the world, like a form of reincarnation. When Midi and Nanachi are transformed into Narehate, Nanachi claims that Midi's soul still resides in her body. Nanachi also specifically uses the term imprisoned. Midi isn't able to control her body, and her movements are claimed to be reflexive rather than conscious movements. Yet there is still a mind within. This sounds terrifying. The Ido Front arc and Bondrewd introduce us to the Zoaholic, or the Soul Slave Machine. Bondrewd claims that every single one of the Umbra hands is but myself. Rico says that the Zoaholic enables someone to plant yourself within another person. Upon the death of a body, Bondrewd's soul jumps to another. Rico also says that it leads to the collapse of one's self-perception. Due to how the Umbra hands act, it can also be assumed that even if they have individual identities like Guerra, Galache, and Rimeo, there's a bit of Bondrewd within them. Rimeo even explains in chapter 67 that this shared consciousness can serve as a far-reaching communication. It's a network of minds where the individuals are connected with the mind of a central figure planted within each of them. White whistles also connect with the concept of the soul. For the base material, the life reverberating stone, to be created, a person needs to sacrifice their body for another. Their consciousness still lies within, as we see with Prushka and Doni. This isn't confirmed to be their soul, because if you think about it, a soul and a consciousness would be related but separate things. The consciousness would be like the identity and mind of a person, and what makes Prushka Prushka is what's speaking to Rico in her dreams, whereas the concept of a soul is explained more in depth in chapter 67. Strajo tells Rico that what she recognizes as the soul does not exist outside of the abyss. What we call spirit or mind, we don't know whether the soul in its proper meaning exists. However, the soul that occurs within the abyss are signals of unknown origin which do exist. The identification of life, propagation of consciousness, the embodiment of curses and prayers. The roles of these signals we call the soul are many. My belief is the most important reason for the existence of the soul is pre-processing. The soul, through the invisible force field, permeates into any and all that the abyss touches. The soul overlaps with life and models each individual's life insignia. We are beings that have reached complete harmony with these souls originating from the abyss. We are the children of the abyss, in a way. Having become one with life, the soul holds a great expanse of information, from relationships to memories, and even the unconscious. The soul is said to hold information, and Rico determines that the abyss is watching us through the soul. From what I understand, similar to Bondrewd and his Umbra hands, I would say that souls are the nodes of a network. Think of each living being as having a designation tag on them that emits signals and accumulates and stores information. Like a sort of abyssal amiibo or flash drive, I guess. The abyss is connecting these signals to each other and to itself. When a person dies, their tag is returned to be recycled and used on another body. The birthday death disease is the result of the abyss keeping track of this tag and the information stored on it, including the date in which the tag was first assigned to the body. The birthday death disease is a 2,000-year timer that is damaging, infecting, and killing off people in accordance to the date of the birth recorded on their tag. At least that's how I'm interpreting it. In the process of creating a life reverberating stone, that tag isn't discarded, but transferred from the body to the stone, along with the consciousness and all the information accumulated with the tag. In terms of pre-processing, that's a term that has to do with computer data, from what I've read. Wikipedia says, examples of methods used in data pre-processing include cleaning, instance selection, normalization, one-hot encoding, data transformation, feature extraction, and feature selection. The fact that cleaning is mentioned in this definition along with Reg asking if pre-processing is, quote, like blood draining, is leading me to believe that my idea of the information storing tag is likely. When the tag is cleaned, it's like it's being, like, erased. Srajo says that the conferring of a soul is a pre-process of the birthday death disease. Well, it's paraphrased, you get me. I believe these mass extinction events that occur every 2,000 years are a cleaning of these informational tags. The tags are returned to the Abyss and perhaps wiped clean of all information and designations, bringing about a new dawn to be used once more. Why it's doing that? I don't know. Now, it seems like there's a way to survive this wiping of the soul. At the end of chapter 66, Ozan introduces Jiruo to a fool who had an accident, or rather, the sole survivor of the curse that was strewn about all here. This person, let's note, is a quadruple amputee. When the twins are revealed to have all 4 limbs removed, Reg questions the two, and Mine says, "Don't make me remember, because you and your friends will end up like this too." This must have been some horrific thing to endure. And I believe that something about the birthday death disease, if one survives it, must result in the removal of one's limbs, otherwise it will result in death. The praying skeletons that date back to 2,000, 4,000, and 6,000 years ago have all their limbs, with their hands clasped in prayer. Something about the strain of the disease, or in other words, the Abyss pre-processing of the souls, seems to be bypassed via amputation. I'm led to believe that the disease starts at the extremities, and the person in question needs their limbs chopped off to prevent it from spreading. Situations like deep frostbite can damage blood vessels, which can lead to improper blood flow and the development of gangrene. In severe cases, gangrene can only be treated via amputation. Knowing the rest of the series, the extent of the birthday death disease can't just be gangrene. It's gotta be more horrific. And I think that this is a good place to start in terms of brainstorming ideas. I don't know, what do you think? There is a lot to say about the concept of souls. We've discussed a bunch of them before. And I would like to highlight one such theory by the artist Grinchy Cola, who I've talked about on this channel before. They are the artist behind Made from Fortunes, a beautiful Maiden Abyss fan comic that you should check out. The 7th chapter was recently published. I love their work so much, please look. Anyway, they said the following on Reddit. So, going off the 4chan translation and what I understand, souls don't truly exist as we think, and they are more like a mark. Therefore, people cannot be reborn, and if they are, they wouldn't be the same. But I had a thought from what Fapta said about people having roles, such as stone people having stone people roles. Now, it is also very clear that the Zoaholic can transfer someone's consciousness into a different body, but they lose a part of themselves when that happens. Here's my theory. Everyone has a role to fill out throughout the 2,000-year cycle, and it is somewhat of a loop. However, every time it happens, the people or souls that occupy the role is different, and therefore the outcome is different, like a remix of sorts. What if the Abyss is attempting to create a certain outcome that does something? An example of this remixing can be the Zoaholic itself, and when you transfer bodies, your mark is tampered with, changing you in some way. Along with that, it also explains why people have this weird desire to go to the Abyss. It's looking for the right people to fulfill whatever it is it's trying to fulfill. Everyone is familiar with the loop theory, but I just wanted to put my own spin on it. TLDR, the 2,000-year cycle is a loop theory, but it is remixed every time. Now, this is something that I find to be quite fascinating. The idea that people are born with a predestined role to fulfill something important in the Abyss, or at least play out a part. I think back to the idea of the twins in Orth. Every 30 years, a pair of twins is or isn't born. No matter what, their names will end up as Cherumi and Mine. And this feels deliberate to me, that the idea of a pair of twins named Cherumi and Mine must exist in the Abyss. However, the fact that the twins aren't guaranteed to be born is curious. Are these predestined twins not required at some point? Do they need to do something? Or do they simply need to exist? I'm not sure what else to say on the matter, but Grinchy Cola's idea that everyone is meant to play a role in the 2,000-year cycle is quite intriguing. This anxious little toaster can fit so many theories in him. All of the Reg-related theories and speculations are based on where he came from and what exactly he is. Basically, Reg the boy contains the soul of Reg the dog, according to this theory. There are actually a few dog-like motifs in Reg's design. Notably, in certain shots, you can see the bottoms of his feet, and it's kind of like he's got little puppy paw toe beans. It's really cute, I like it. Reg also has a heightened sense of smell, and when the crew first entered the 6th layer, Nanashi even compared him to a dog as he sniffed around. One could argue that the metal piece that holds up his cape over his shoulders could be reminiscent of a collar, especially where there's this little hook. Theoretically, someone could attach a leash there. I always thought it would be like for hanging it up on a coat hanger. The horns on his helmet could be like little doggy ears, maybe? It's also noted that Reg really loves how fluffy Nanachi is, and it's explained by Tsukushi that it's considered an infantile trait, like a child cuddling up to their favorite blanket. If we connect these to dog-like traits, it could be like a litter of puppies cuddling up to their fluffy mama to be comforted. I'm not too keen on this theory, just because I feel like it wouldn't add anything to his character. Some have argued that it would prove that Reg's creators have harnessed the ability of soul transfer, but I'm not sure how significant it would be for Reg to specifically have this random dog's soul. He has a lot of dog-like traits and motifs, sure. He's a guard dog, he's a loyal companion, he's a scent hound, what have you, but him being Reg's old dog feels far too convenient. However, a lot of people really like this idea, so it's notable to bring it up. I will eat my hat if this turns out to be true. In the Curse Fleet arc, there's a prominence of twins being shown. We've discussed this before. Cherumi and Mine are a mysterious pair of twins, possibly 2 sets of twins, that have died. There are now a pair of Juusou in Strajo's squad. It's complicated. I initially thought they were the same set of people, but now I'm not sure, but that's irrelevant. In any case, there's a focus on twins in the current arc, and that's what matters to this conversation. At the end of chapter 66, Ozen says, in Orth, you might get a single set of twins every 30 years. Compared to other regions, it's staggeringly difficult for twins to be born here. I've seen theories floating around that Reg and Riko are siblings, somehow, and with the twin talk, theories usually say that the two are specifically twins. According to this idea, Liza wouldn't have given birth to the two of them, as Reg doesn't resemble Liza, Torka, or Riko. Ozen would have most likely mentioned if Liza had a second child. Why would he have been separated? Why would he become an Aubade? Instead, their souls could be siblings. Coupled with the idea that the Curse-Repelling Vessel implants new souls into an empty body, the twin theory suggests that the soul inside of the body of Liza and Torka's child originates from Reg's people and was implanted in the body of Liza's stillborn child upon her revival in the vessel. Besides the idea of soul transfer via the vessel, there's no evidence to suggest that Riko's current soul is or was Reg's twin. This theory has to do with the idea that Reg is still a twin, but instead of being Riko's brother, he's Clawbot's. As we do not know too much about Clawbot at this time, the only evidence we can go off of are the fact that they both have tribal markings, they have similar designs. I feel like this is more likely than Reg being Riko's twin. I think it would be very interesting if it's true. I think it would be interesting if Reg has like a secret sister that he doesn't get along with. A good chunk of people also say that Reg contains the original soul that would have been born into Riko's body if she hadn't been stillborn. In a sense, Reg has Riko's soul, Even though I'd argue that the soul that's in Riko's body right now is Riko's soul, and that if the soul that's inside Reg was originally going to be Riko, it's still Reg's soul. This is more of like a philosophical debate, however. I do not have any proof towards this idea that Reg has Riko's soul. I'm not sure what it would add to the story, unless Riko's original soul is the key to something important. Some people still do believe that the soul inside Reg would have originally been inside Riko. I just don't see anything that points to this being the case. So, Riko calls Reg a robot. She says his skin is a different texture than a person's. Reg is also highly durable. Even the immovable Ozen couldn't break a bone in his body. He also heals much faster than a regular person. Reg isn't completely impenetrable. If attacked from the inside, like when Fapta reached into him, he can get pretty banged up, and his belly button is a thin part of the skin that can be pierced relatively easily. Reg also bleeds, he can produce spit and other bodily fluids, he requires sleep and food. These are all pretty organic systems, especially considering that he's been stated to be a robot. Sure, there are robots in other science fiction works who do similar things, like, say, how the units in Ultra Kill use blood as fuel, or Bender from Futurama drinks alcohol to refuel his power cells. Though Bender and V1 don't produce liquid waste like how Reg does, nor do they bleed or have such pliable flesh. Consider the concept of a cyborg, a human that has been augmented with cybernetic attachments. Pretty much all the characters in Cyberpunk would be considered cyborgs to varying degrees. Same thing with General Grievous from Star Wars. I don't know, possibly Anakin and Luke if we consider their prosthetic hands. Raiden in the Metal Gear series is almost entirely made of cybernetic parts, but at the core he's still human. And, like, I guess Cyborg from Teen Titans, but, like, all I know about DC is, one of my friends made me watch The Flash with him, and it was miserable and it ruined my birthday, so thank you, Thomas. Reg's core looks and functions organically, though he's very durable and immune to the curse. As the curse requires human vital organs to pass through the layers of the force field for the curse to activate, Reg might not be a human cyborg, but perhaps something else. Something adjacent to humanity, but not enough to be human. I believe his limbs are augmented cybernetics in the form of relics, but at the core, he's still organic. He's a very durable organic being at that, but some parts of him originated from an organic source. It would be like a sort of Ship of Theseus situation in terms of part replacement. Flesh and bone replaced with synthetic sinew and metal, organs replaced with relics, skin replaced with inorganic grafts, to the point Reg's only original part would be his soul. Obviously, this means we need to find his original flesh parts and rebuild him to see what happens. Either that or they built like the Aubade body and just like transferred his soul. I have a video that fully tackles this man or machine debate if you're curious. And though it's more likely that he's a robot, I suggest watching that video for a more in-depth look. The Golden City is a rumored place among Idomui's people, the capital of the Unreturned, the same name as the Sixth Layer. The people of Idomui's village adorn themselves with geometric tattoos once they reach adulthood, as a reflection of the people in the Golden City. There's a line that Vueko says in chapter 47 to Idomui's memory, in regards to Reg. He probably was that thing you talked about, a true resident of the Golden City. Reg has the same markings that the adults in Idomui's tribe typically have, but not this old guy that Vueko and Bailoff talk to for some reason. Maybe it's only reserved for certain roles in the tribe. When Fapta communicates with Doni, the person who became Liza's White Whistle, she conveys the message that someone, quote, related to Reg is weighted at the Ring of the Essence, which is deeper than the Sixth Layer. As this is confirmation that Reg originates from within the Abyss, below the Sixth Layer, and the people of the Golden City live within the Abyss and are adorned with the same markings, I think it is safe to say that Reg is one of these residents. This is something that I am almost completely sure of. This also opens up many questions, and possibly answers others. Clawbot is most likely also another true resident. Despite sharing design motifs with Gabadoon, the latter tells Reg that they do not know of any units that can cross layers like Reg. It's up in the air whether Reg and the interference units share the same origin or not. Reg and Clawbot, however, do share the telltale tribal markings of the Golden City. Surely they must originate from there. In conclusion, I'm not a big fan of the ideas of, like, Reg being Riko's brother, having her soul, having the dog's soul. It seems too conveniently coincidental. I think it's far more likely and more thematic if Reg is connected to Clawbot on a deeper level. My personal belief is that Clawbot is his twin sister and they're both true residents of the Abyss. Somewhere in the true Golden City, these residents either rebuild their bodies piece by piece so that they're immune to the curse, or perhaps they do some sort of soul transfer thing, putting their souls in the bodies of Aubades. I like the rebuilt cyborg idea the most, and considering the Sharumena leg reveal, I'm really heavily leaning towards this. It seems very likely. Again, I talk about it more in my Reg video. Of course, alternate ideas and theories are more than welcome in a discussion. These are just my thoughts after all. I would love to hear what other people think. The repetition of the number 5 is an idea presented to me by the YouTube user PocketWithFrog, and they wrote the following comment. Something I'm surprised you didn't bring up is how there are 5 levels of value, Shi, Ku, Gutsu, Mei, and Haku, that repeat in themes with the Cave Raiders. 5 colors of whistle, with the last one being rare and special. 5 levels of relic, with the last one being rare and special. 5 strains of ascension, with the last one being total loss of humanity. The author is definitely hammering home this idea of 5 tiers of value. And I think there's definitely something here, so let's compare the different levels. We have the levels of value, whistle levels, types of curses, relic tiers, the white whistles in the abyss, and the layers that can be returned from. The one thing that kind of throws a wrench into this listing is the strains of ascension that includes the 6th layer. And in this chart, I merged the 1st and 2nd layer curses into one, as the only difference between them is that the nausea and headaches are more intense in the 2nd layer, and numbness starts to occur, and the 3rd layer presents more extreme changes. I definitely think Pocket is onto something, including the strains of ascension in this comparison, but I'm just not sure where to draw the line. Perhaps we can disclude the 6th layer because, once you descend there, it's a point of no return. The order of the white whistles who are currently in the abyss are also a curiosity. I ordered them along the lines of who Riko has encountered so far, and who she has left to encounter. And I listed Wakuna before Liza because, Liza is definitely going to be the last one she meets. That's not to say that Ozen is comparable to a 4th grade relic or Srajo is a paragon of purity, but I think there are comparisons to be made in terms of the number repetition. Bondrewd being on the same tier as Ku, which is defined as an accumulating wish, could sort of be seen as a parallel to Nanachi and Midi. Though I would say Nanachi would consider Midi to be her Haku, I think the whole Narehate experimentation and the shunting of the curse onto an external person like Midi or Prushka, or any of the other Juicebox babies, could be seen as the accumulation of wishes. Bondrewd did mention the hopes and dreams of the different kids that were made into curse boxes. If we're treating the idea of an accumulation of wishes as a literal concept, then these wishes of these children are a sort of transactional value that has helped spare Bondrewd from the whole brunt of the curse. It is easy to say that Liza is Riko's Haku, so that aligns. Riko's whole journey through the abyss is to find Liza. When Reg first encounters Fapta in the 6th layer, he says he's trying to find his Haku, which is implied to be Riko herself. Remember in the Resurrection Festival when this Igor-looking guy puts on a presentation about Liza and the different ranks of whistles? The depiction of Liza is quite interesting. She's intimidating with this long cut of a mouth and a slit-like eye. She's almost monstrous, don't you think? Maybe not even human. I want to put a pin in that concept. We'll come back to this later. In any case, the repetition of the number 5 is very prominent in the series. I'd also like to point out that the Eternal Fortunes have 5 petals on each flower. The number 5 and increasing values are intrinsically tied with concepts in Maiden Abyss. Again, thank you, Pocket, for pointing this out to me. What we know about the Curse-Repelling Vessel is that any dead creature put into it is revitalized, as discovered by Ozan after Riko's birth. Even a corpse that's been cut up and is pretty much just meat on bones will be brought back to some form of ambulation. When carried in the vessel, the curse isn't repelled as much as the body seems to recover from the impact of the curse. Initially, in regards to Riko's revival, I thought that the vessel was a sort of healing contraption. Yet, if you think back to Ozan's little torso corpse, that creature didn't have any organs. Due to this, we can speculate that the vessel sort of kickstarts whatever vital systems the body put inside the vessel has. For the torso corpse, it would have been the muscles and anything else necessary to get it to move. For Riko, I assume she has all of her organs, and so everything was brought back to working order. The manner of losing her eyesight is an interesting conundrum. Riko never lost her eyesight or had any sort of damaged eyesight. If she removes her glasses, her vision isn't blurry. She just experiences headaches if she isn't viewing anything through, quote, crystal lenses, as Juusou puts it. It was, as he says, something Liza regrets, and something that happens to Riko due to the curse. I can't say what part of the curse could have given Riko such an affliction. If her eyesight isn't impacted, then she can't be straining her eyes by squinting or attempting to focus on whatever she's looking at. Maybe the bleeding of the 4th layer impacted the blood vessels in her eyes? I don't know. So here's a baseless theory of my own. Juusou and Liza couldn't have known Riko experiences headaches when not wearing glasses until she was brought back to Earth, possibly a few months into her life. Her crying in frustration beforehand could be passed off as a typical baby fussiness, rather than distress from headaches. So Liza never saw Riko without her glasses inside the Abyss. My theory is that Riko, having been born in the Abyss as well as gestated and possibly conceived there, is so imbued with the forces of the Abyss that she functions her best inside there. And I believe that might have been confirmed on one of the commentary soundtracks. I'm not quite sure. So now all we gotta do is see what happens if Riko takes off her glasses inside the Abyss and looks around. And until then, this idea is, again, kind of baseless. Funny thing about this theory, I was initially very dismissive of it when writing, and then chapter 67 dropped and my initial speculation got blown entirely out of the water. Laugh at me, point and laugh. To recap, Srajo describes the soul as being a sort of node or tag that stores information about a person, who they're connected to, and so on, rather than being some sort of life force. At least, that's what it seems. On screen is the time code to the first reading of that passage. Due to this, we can infer that what happened to Riko when she was first born is that a new soul was implanted within her, given by the Curse-Repelling Vessel. The concept of the vessel implanting subliminal desires in those it resurrects is a theory posited by Reddit user r/peopleareawful. In their words, everything the box resurrects wants to head to the bottom of the abyss, including Riko, who crawled towards the bottom of the abyss as soon as she was resurrected. Earlier in their post, they say that the vessel can, quote, produce reincarnations of its inventor, who, upon reaching the bottom of the abyss, can assist the original. Let's go over Awful's entire theory, which I will be summarizing. The vessel imparts subliminal desires. Riko, the stake monster, which is what I will be calling the torso corpse from now on, and other creatures revived by the vessel all have a noticeable desire to go to the center and bottom of the abyss. From the moment Riko was born, she was constantly crawling in the direction of the abyss. Resurrected creatures are more resilient. Awful uses this as an indication that, quote, resurrected creatures don't possess their original life force. Newborns do not crawl as Riko did, and the stake monster, even with all of its organs and the rest of its body removed, was pretty darn capable of shambling its way around the seeker camp. Riko subliminally knew Reg's true name since birth. Fapta knew Reg's name before Riko officially named him. Awful states the following. The name Reg is ingrained in Riko's mind to the point where she named her childhood pet dog Reg. So, Riko subconsciously associates the name Reg with a steadfast companion. Riko's strong subconscious memories and desires are thematically consistent with ideas of reincarnation. And you know who else might know Reg as a steadfast companion? My mom! That was so stupid. And you know who else might know Reg as a steadfast companion? His inventor, if he was indeed invented at the bottom of the abyss. The most powerful abyssal relics appear to be means of escaping the abyss or attaining immortality. If you were down in the bottom of the abyss, you're stuck there. Quote, if there was a possible way to explore the skies above you, even in spirit, it would be quite a high priority. The second highest priority, of course, would be living long enough to find that escape. With special grade relics, the Zoaholic allows the user to hop bodies when the previous body has been killed, as well as controlling the other bodies. Though there's a range limit, with little to no communication possible between layers, this could be one draft of a resurrecting or mind-sharing device. With Supreme Treasures, if the vessel indeed was created by the same person who created Reg, with his ability to cross layers and avoid the curse, Reg could explore the upper layers in place of his creator. The 1,000 Men pins that Ozan has embedded all over her body give her resilience, strength, and elongated life. The Reddit post mentions a relic called the Eon Depths. I presume it's referring to what the wiki calls the deep sea lion life. There's translation issues with this relic's name. I've seen people say, like, deep sea eon, whatnot, whatever. The deep sea lion life is a special grade artifact that, when consumed, is said to greatly expand the lifespan of the user. So, time dilation and the creator of the relics. The theory goes on to suggest that whoever created the Curse-Repelling Vessel could want some human help with whatever they're up to. Quote, a box that produces reincarnations of a very smart, dedicated person with a burning desire to reach the inventor at the bottom of the abyss sounds like a very powerful way of asking for help. The time dilation of the abyss could possibly lead to the relic's creator still being alive by the time someone reaches them. What does this inventor want? Awful comes to the conclusion that there's no conclusion just yet. They're unsure what a potential inventor wants, whether it be companion, a sacrifice, information on the surface. This theory was posted in December of 2017. That was 7 years ago. And yeah, back then we didn't know the function of the Curse-Repelling Vessel, and to an extent, we still don't. With the information we've received in the most recent chapters in regards to souls, I'm led to believe that Awful may not be too off the mark. It's heavily suggested that Riko's soul was implanted within her when Ozan put her in the Curse-Repelling Vessel. Riko may have been meant to be born with a specific soul, but her being stillborn either tossed that soul away or it was never given to her, depending on how soul assignment works, whether it's assigned while still in the womb. Whatever's the case, we have a lot of space to speculate on Riko's current soul. Awful also mentions Riko's strong subconscious memories and desires are thematically consistent with ideas of reincarnation. Riko's soul could have previously been someone connected to Reg. The idea that Riko used to be Reg's inventor is so fascinating and also brings up so many other questions. Did Proto-Riko, as I'm going to call this figure, make Reg as a protective unit, considering Reg's current role as a bodyguard? Was she a figure similar to Bondrewd and wanted to prepare for the dawn? Reg is known as an Aubade. Even though Awful's theory is 7 years old and certain elements are made null by more recent chapters, it still opens the door to so many questions, and I really wanted to include this. Alright, the big question. What's causing the curse? I will be touching on the 4 biggest possibilities. Number 1. The abyss itself is a relic. Relics can cause all sorts of effects, such as the Zoaholic being able to capture a soul and transfer it to another body, or the 1,000 Men pins imbuing strength within the user. This theory suggests that the very abyss itself is one big relic, and that its effect is the curse. For this to happen, I would think that maybe the outer walls of this relic are unfathomably enormous and line the farthest edges of the abyss. Assuming that all the other relics were made by true residents, the abyss would have been made by them as well. For this to be accomplished, however, I think that it would have required a ton of manpower, and for that I would say this isn't very likely. That is, if the entire structure of the abyss was built, or at least a significant chunk of it. Though more likely, option number 2, the curse comes from a relic. Imagine the following scenario. Riko, Reg, Nanachi, and any other friends they've made along the way make the final descent. They walk up to the very center of the abyss, guided by the star compass they reacquired. They've come across the real Golden City, and in the town square is a relic, beaming a light up high into the sky. Nanachi speaks up, saying that all around them, the force field has settled, and yet where the light from the relic starts, so does the force field. The curse, the force field, and everything influencing the abyss comes from this exact point. The true residents of the Golden City have made it for some inexplicable reason. Perhaps it was a way to encourage more people to come to the city. Perhaps it was a way to make sure secrets couldn't get out. Perhaps they'll find the answer the more they venture around the Golden City. Or perhaps there's no answer. Perhaps they just made it without a second thought. And now we all have to live with the consequences. Option number 3, the abyss is a living creature. As I've stated in my iceberg video, the mangaka has cited the Xenoblade Chronicles series as an inspiration for the setting of Maiden Abyss. In the first game, creatures live on the enormous body of a living being. You can also go inside this being, the Bionis, and in the second game you can go in and out of the digestive systems of various titans. The second game wasn't out by the time Maiden Abyss was out, but it's what I'm more familiar with in the series. From what I understand, in the first game you can also see the organ systems of the Bionis, but it's been a long time since I played the game. I need to finish it. Considering how influential Xenoblade Chronicles was to the creation of the setting, the abyss being organic in some form seems pretty likely. This line from Ilimui is also quite curious. The curse could be a sort of digestive system, urging people to go further and further into the abyss's bowels. Keep going down, keep getting eaten, and if you try to leave, it'll still take something from you. The first 3 layers dissuade leaving, and from the 4th onward, you start to lose nutrients. You bleed, you break your teeth, you slough off your skin, and erupt in tumors. The curse could be a way for the abyss to consume nutrients. Iruburu seems like a microcosm of a larger part of the abyss, as it is this living body that also serves as an enclosed shaft. The abyss is an immense ecosystem, though, while Iruburu must lure in outside creatures to sustain itself. If we consider delvers going down in the abyss similar to the luring of Iruburu, it feels a bit more intentional. Maybe the more organic part of the abyss hasn't been reached yet. I've seen some people compare the structure of the abyss to a womb, a mouth, eyes, and other biological parts. Though these comparisons are always pointed at the lower levels. The structure of the 7th layer so far seems quite amorphous and also reminds me of Iruburu. Like, you look at these panels and you think, like, at least to me, these look like embryos. This looks like fetal. I don't know. There's like a lot of reproductive imagery in this series. Just look at these, like, what are called the eyes of the abyss. Like, that, it looks like a messed up little embryo. I love it. The crew could be entering the biological parts of the abyss in the latest manga arc, though what that would entail is something we have yet to see. We encounter a secondary issue here. what part of this abyssal megafauna is being entered? The obvious answer would be the digestive tract, entering through the mouth to be consumed. Idamui's people liken the curse to being eaten. However, this is a personal theory of mine that I'll elaborate upon later, but what if it's a sort of reproductive system? Finally, option 4, the force field itself causes the curse. Basically, there's no source, it's just the force field. There's no explanation, and it would just be incredibly unsatisfying in my opinion. The presence of the force field does indicate the presence of the curse, though right now we don't know if it's the source. Maybe it has something to do with the central light shaft, because the closer you get to the center light shaft, the stronger the curse is. In my opinion, this seems like the least likely answer. It seems kinda anticlimactic and lame. The central light shaft and the force field are indications of the curse and whatnot, but it being the source, it'd just be boring. In conclusion, if you ask me, I heavily lean into the theory that the curse comes from a relic at the bottom, as well as possibly the abyss being a living creature that naturally produces the curse. How this supernatural digestive tract is causing such adverse effects, who knows? It's a fantasy story. One of our main characters is a giant fluffy bunny. Anything goes. I would love to hear alternate theories. Give me your thoughts. Which one of these theories do you like the most? I'd like to dedicate this section to my best friend, who suggested this topic and pointed out some information to me. Thank you so much for this. Ozan is a bit of a concerning case. She takes great pleasure in kicking around and abusing the children who she encounters. Poor Maruk is shown to get the worst of it, followed up closely by Reg in the short period of time they interacted.
It's time to stop! I'm gonna call Child Protective Services! It's time to stop!
Yet, she's considered on the nicer end in terms of how white whistles behave. She describes Bondrewd as being a bastard, and that she's gentle by comparison. Sure, she could be lying to intimidate Rico and Reg, but... yeah, no, she is telling the truth. She's very gentle in comparison to Bondrewd. So far, Srajo seems like the most well-adjusted white whistle that Rico has to deal with, but we haven't seen much of her. She could be the worst. The mystery and legendary air around the various white whistles gives off a feeling that white whistles have almost transcended humanity. They're sovereigns of the abyss, lords of the netherworld. Armed with abyssal relics and accompanied by the reconstructed souls of those who loved them, white whistles have earned their title of legendary cave raiders. Surviving in the abyss requires quick thinking and a strong conviction. It also requires a tough stomach and the willingness to suppress one's emotions. Without Nanachi and her detached demeanor, Rico would have died. Reg was far too emotional and panicked as Rico was bleeding out. If you're gonna save someone else's life in the abyss, you need to come to the terms with the fact that they could easily just die in your arms. I believe that as time goes on and as people adapt to being cave raiders, they undergo a change in their mentality. They're numb to the horrors and see pain as an obstacle. The abyss changes them. The abyssal curls could be seen as a physical scar that reflects the mental and emotional impacts a delver has endured. The more trauma you've shouldered, the more it's reflected in your appearance. As for how they physically come about, I have a video explaining my theories, so check that out too. Rico is already quite strange. Her emotional state seems rather detached. She's very sweet, but something doesn't seem all there. She doesn't have much respect for personal boundaries, and sometimes her emotional reactions to things may be a bit inappropriate. However, she is 12 years old, so a lot of behaviors can be explained by the fact that she's young. Her ability to bounce back after so much pain and trauma is very impressive. She's able to shake off experiencing horrors that would have otherwise devastated even adults. She could be adapting to the conditions of the abyss, or the Abyss could already be making an impact on her. Only time will tell. Though there is another starry-eyed blonde white whistle making her way down to the bottom of the Abyss. Liza has been described as being a bit erratic by Juusou. She would be just another weirdo if she wasn't such an impressive delver. We've seen Ozen's casual cruelty and Bondrewd's skewed morality. Srajo is normal. Well, so far, and she doesn't like to be criticized on her cooking. She has ample time to show her true colors. However, Liza is almost completely unknown. We've seen how she cares for her daughter in her own special way. She wanted Riko to forge her own path and be separate from Liza's legacy, and the danger that such a legacy would attract. Besides Jiruo, Habo, and Riko's close friends, Riko isn't of any note during Liza's Resurrection Festival. Riko wasn't even at Belmore's play about her own mother, instead having gone to the Guild HQ to receive Liza's White Whistle. Though, there is a curious thing about that play. When Belmore announces Liza's name and the projector is turned on, a silhouette is displayed. This is Liza, hunched over with this maelstrom of curly hair, a slitted eye and a gash of a mouth. She's nudging her pickaxe back and forth as the children cheer. This depiction of Liza is downright monstrous, barely recognizable as human. Perhaps this is to illustrate how Liza is this larger-than-life figure, despite her short stature in life. She's Liza the Annihilator, who slayed countless abyssal creatures and defeated waves of enemy delvers. Liza, despite her soft curls and bright eyes, is known for violence. White Whistles get their nicknames for a reason. Ozen is truly an immovable fighter. Bondrewd has developed novel technologies to prepare for the new dawn, and Srajo is uncovering the mystery of Hariomari's song. After enduring the corruption and ruthlessness of the Abyss, I believe Liza will become the embodiment of annihilation, more beast than human, and possibly resembling the depiction projected at her funeral. Also, once again, I'm reminding you to read Jeff Vandermeer's Southern Reach trilogy, the first of which is entitled Annihilation. Come on, man, you know you want to. You get a weird landscape, a weird underground tunnel thing. The movie really disappointed me, though. Hey, was anyone going to tell me that a fourth book came out? This is a theory by Reddit user r/rosyfeather, who graciously gave me permission to talk about this on this video. Thank you so much, Rosie. I probably could have just, read this out loud verbatim without asking, but I feel like it would be rude if I did that without asking permission. This is a me thing, this is... I don't know why. This theory ties into Hariomari's song and the specific line of "a red star dropped into the abyss," tying together the themes presented in the game Binary Star Falling into Darkness, Liza, and Riko. I'll be reading Rosie's post verbatim and expand upon it with my own ideas. Anytime that it's Rosie's words, I will be showing an image of Tiare on the screen, as that is who he asked to be represented by. An interesting parallel. Chapter 66 finally gave us some snippets of the Hariomari collection, which has been the cause for a lot of discussion and interpretations. To those who have answered, the flake reaches beyond the spiral, reborn in the faraway nest. Shining unaware by a soul, a red star dropped into the abyss. Now this theory relates to the game Maiden Abyss Binary Star Falling into Darkness. In the game, we play as a customizable player character by the default name Aki, which is also what I will be calling them. The name probably comes from the author's pen name Akihito Tsukushi. Also, very minor spoilers for the game beyond this point. In the game, we follow 4 different cave raiders, including the player, from Belchero Orphanage. But the only ones the game cares about are Aki and Tiare. The main questline of the game follows your search for Tiare, the blonde one, after he mysteriously went missing in the first layer. There are a couple cutscenes of you meeting with Tiare in the deeper layers, where you'll learn more about his reasons for going down the abyss prematurely. My interpretation of the name is that the binary star is reflected to the player's character and Tiare's relationship. Now, as for why I think this, we're gonna have to take a little detour. In astronomy, a binary star system is a star system where two different stars orbit each other. Picture the two suns seen from Tatooine in Star Wars. But the thing about binary star systems is that, quote, some binary partners evolve rapidly into red giant or supergiant stars, while their small companions remain stable. Now, if we put on our analytic glasses, we can see the connection pretty easily. Aki and Tiare represent the binary star system, considering the fact that they both practically orbit each other in the abyss, and that the abyss is literally just space. Plus, the name falling into darkness might just be a different way of saying the abyss, since darkness is pretty much a synonym for abyss. And the part about, quote, binary partners evolving rapidly makes a lot of sense if you know the ending for the game / the main questline. But now, what does this have to do with the Hariomari collection? Well, as we can conclude from the earlier paragraph, Tsukushi gives the title of star to important characters in the main story that we are following. For binary star, we follow the story of an unstable binary star system, aka Aki and Tiare. But what about the main plot? What type of star could be mentioned? That's where Hariomari's collection comes into place. A red star dropped into the abyss. Now, a red star could mean a lot of things, but let's first try to identify the red star. We were able to identify the star characters in binary star by analyzing their properties. If we go by that pattern, we have two suspects, this eccentric person and this little fella. Now, as for why these two, the first reason is that these are major, if not the most important characters in the entire series. The second is that both these characters have / had a defining red trait, Riko's red whistle and Lizen's entire outfit. Also, the reason I said had is because in an earlier design, Riko had a red scarf and had more of a red color scheme going on. So with this, I think we can confidently narrow it down to Liza because Riko doesn't even wear her red whistle anymore, and the only other things remotely red related to her is non-canon, unless you count blood, of course. Now, a question that might arise is, why Liza? It doesn't really feel right to come to this conclusion through a process of elimination. Well, Liza is actually a bit more than she seems. Multiple times in the series, she was explained as being legendary even among the White Whistles, but they never really explicitly stated why. My take is that the reason she's so legendary is because of her down-to-earth nature. Literally every single other White Whistle we know of has either transcended or renounced their humanity in some way. But not Liza. She was literally compared to being a regular old drunk, if not for her status, by Juusou. In essence, she is the most human White Whistle. A fitting title for her would probably be Sovereign of Humanity. But they definitely shot that down because of how pretentious it sounds, instead opting for Destruction, something very human in nature. But I personally think that this is a shot in the dark, but let's move on anyway. The other thing of note is that after the final verse, we are treated to this page. Now, where else do we see this symbol? In the necklace which Reg had that was supposedly given to him by Liza. Now this is something that I'm confident about. But regardless, the final correlation I found relates to the second to last verse of the collection, in which it speaks of spirals. And where do we see spirals in the series? In Liza's hair, of course. This is literally the only character with such noticeable spirals in their design. Although, in my honest opinion, this one sounds more like a conspiracy theory than anything of substance. Alright, I'm back, and I think Rosie has a very good argument here, and I would be extremely surprised if this didn't turn out to be the case. First off, the parallels between whistles and stars seems very apt at this point, considering the title of the game, and I had also had people comment on my iceberg video that perhaps White Whistles, to fit with the astronomy theme, could represent stars. I've also seen people say that they represent the moon, but, we already have the moon whistles. The one question that arises from Rosie's analysis in the Hariomari song being about Liza is, how could an account recovered 250 years ago talk about a woman who's probably around, 30 or so years old? I have two ideas. Either Hariomari's song is a prophecy, or temporal anomalies don't just stop at abyssal time dilation. In other words, there's a time loop, time travel, or some sort of split in time going on. Now, I have no evidence to back up either of those definitively. We haven't seen any instances of prophecies or any sort of oracle-type figure in Maiden Abyss thus far, and all we've known of anomalies in time boiled down to abyssal time dilation. I suppose something could be said about the discrepancy between the belief that the Abyss was discovered 1900 years ago, even though there are praying skeletons dating back 6,000 years, and Ido tribe already lived on the land that would be Orth, but that's most likely colonialist revision going on. There's a history in real life of saying, this land was discovered X amount of years ago by travelers or colonialists while the native people have been living there for thousands of years. Like, Columbus didn't discover America, there were already people there. If you ask me, I think a sort of time loop is going on, and my biggest theory lies with Reg. Reg had his name before Rico named him. Unless Liza implicitly implanted the name within Rico's mind, and Rico named her dog Reg while Liza named his little Aubade with the same name, I'd like to propose the concept that the first time Reg was named was when Rico named him. So let's put this on a timeline. At the beginning, we have Reg already named meets Liza in the Abyss. Later on, Reg meets Fapta in Gabadoon. During this time, young Rico owns a dog that she names Reg. Reg ascends to the first layer and loses his memory, and then meets Rico. Rico officially names Reg after her old dog. Reg and Rico dive into the Abyss with the intent of finding Liza and the secret behind Reg. So, this next part hasn't happened yet, but it's my prediction. Some sort of time-based relic will mess with Reg, sending him back to Liza's time. Then time travel, woohoo! The time travel event happens, and we loop back to Reg, already named, meets Liza in the Abyss. It's just an idea. I believe that there's going to be some sort of time event, I guess you could call it, that allows Reg to travel back to when Liza first came down to the bottom layer, or wherever she found him. Perhaps the time dilation could fold in on itself, you could say. I don't know, I'm not a scientist. I know that there's like theories about like wormholes in space-time or whatever. It's in an episode of Futurama. So anyway, so little time passes on in the bottom of the Abyss that it starts going in reverse maybe. Events happen all at once. This is a fantasy series after all. For Liza, barely any time has passed, to the point where Reg is in Rico's past, but in Liza's present at the same time. This is very confusing. This sort of time dilation and corruption, with the Abyss traveling back in time, depending on the depth, could place Liza 250 years in Orth's past and meet whoever Hariomari is. Either that, or it's a prophecy, which would be the easier answer. But I think something related to corrupted time would be a lot more fun. Though it could result in plot holes. I don't know. In any case, Rosie's idea that Liza is this red star that's fallen into darkness is something I am all here for. Personally, I lean more towards Rico being that star, as there's, a connection between the depiction of the Abyssal Shrine Maiden, the pattern on the Prush whistle. They both share this Maiden keyhole motif. I feel like there's definitely foreshadowing going on there. If the red star isn't Rico, then I think this parallel could be hinting at Rico being a sort of herald of Hariomari's song and the Shrine Maiden, and once again tying herself back to Liza and the red star. Anyway, thank you again to rosyfeather for giving me permission to talk about your theory. I really hope I did it justice. There are very few minor characters in the series that are given names. Though there are fan favorites like Pakoyan and Gurera, those two have a few distinct appearances, and a few lines between them. They have dedicated fans despite their small roles. If you're really into the fandom, you'll have seen some fan art of them. But I bet you haven't even seen any fan art of Ilim. I bet you don't even remember her name. In the manga, she shows up for one panel, and we don't even get to see her face. In the anime, she's shown just for a brief moment in Nanachi's flashback. Ilim is a young girl around the same age as Nanachi and Midi. She has long pink pigtails and choppy bangs, and eyes to match. She's like if Rico and Madoka Kaname fused together, I'd say. Ilim gets one line of attention, of Bondrewd calling her name. He's in the midst of his ascension experiments. We all assume Ilim is just going to have a fun little elevator ride and then get hidden away in the miniature Garden of Dawn. Ilim is just a small bit character, given a name to perhaps bring a bit of character to Bondrewd and to the other orphans. He respects the identities of the orphans he's experimenting on. A bit of an oxymoron, but like, hey, this is Bondrewd we're talking about. Let's look into another flashback. A young Prushka is recovering from her first accident in the 5th layer. She's hiding away in a little hole in the wall. Her white hair is short and feathery, and she's still unable to speak. Bondrewd kneels down next to Guerrera and in front of Prushka, and presents her with a Meinya Stilim, a child of change. Prushka names this creature Meinya, as that's the only bit of the creature's name that she can say. Meinya is a fat, round little creature with wings, with fuzzy powder pink fur and horizontal toad-like eyes. And sniffing Meinya allows Prushka to navigate the curse of the abyss. Let's skip ahead a little bit. Prushka gets Prushboxed and becomes Riko's white whistle. Meinya ends up accompanying Riko and her crew down to the 6th layer, and then to the 7th, meeting the white whistle Srajo and her crew Hail Hex. In chapter 65, Srajo takes note of Meinya, and mentions that this unassuming little frog creature thingy seems to be Bondrewd's attempt at creating an artificial Juusou. Juusou, as you may recall, are people born as Narehate. Instead of being transformed into a Narehate due to the 6th layer's curse, they have already been born one, for whatever reason. Save for Srajo herself, Hail Hex is composed entirely of Juusou. And if you ask me, I would think Fapta would qualify as one, but she's not for whatever reason, but whatever. Srajo says she suspects that Bondrewd mixed a human soul with an animal's fetus in an attempt to create an artificial Juusou. Let's look back at Ilim. In the anime, she's voiced by Natsuko Hara in the Japanese original. Meinya is also voiced by Hara as well. Yeah, shows will reuse voice actors, especially for little bit parts like this. But consider the name Meinya Stilim, a child of change. In fact, the writing in Japanese uses the same symbols, which I'll show on screen. Bondrewd's experimentations didn't just stop at cartridges. Srajo, as a white whistle, knows things that the more common delvers do not. If she thinks he's trying to create an artificial Juusou, she's probably right on track, especially since she would know more about Juusou than the other white whistles. Bondrewd didn't use Ilim in the elevator or cartridge experiments. Somehow, most likely, he was able to capture her soul to insert it into the still developing fetus of some animal. Let's consider Bondrewd's goal as the Sovereign of Dawn, trying to bring about the next 2,000 years, and prepare for whatever that means. Cartridges help handle the ascending of layers. The Zoaholic allows him to hop around new bodies once the last one has been destroyed. For him to experiment with Juusou would surely be related to his pursuit of the Dawn, unless it's like a fun little side project of his, I don't know. Go girl, do your art projects. Does Bondrewd think that the Juusou have some sort of trait about them that combats the Abyss? Meinya is able to dodge the curse, it seems. And sniffing their fur allows Prushka and Riko a bit of insight into the force field, this strange sixth sense that isn't taken away from the 5th layer's curse. Nanachi is also able to see the force field, but what about any other members of Hail Hex? So far, there's nothing to suggest that Nishigora, Yatadamar, or anyone else are immune to the curse, or if they could see the force field. I would also assume Meinya was created before Nanachi was turned into a Narehate, as Ilim was taken away before Nanachi and Midi were. Time will tell if Bondrewd's Juusou experimentation has an answer beyond him just being curious. Now, what creature's fetus could have been used? I have a few ideas, but I don't have any definitive answers. And this is just like for fun, I guess. Neritantans are around the same size as Meinya. They're round with stubby legs and soft fur. However, they have these very thick spade-like tails, while Meinya just has like a little tushy. Hermit rats are similarly sized and have this like light pink warm fur. Bondrewd is known to have access to the 6th layer, where we've seen hermit rats, though beyond the size and their fur color, there's not other similarities. But they do scream at each other at one point, and it's really cute, and I like it. Whenever I see animals, my little lizard brain just goes, oh! Shroom bears are a bit bigger than Meinya, but beyond their size and having fur and their stubby little legs, there's even less similarities. Well, this has just become like a little guy listing thing, I don't know. In the first intro, we can see this fluffy white creature dance on Reg's collar and hop off. It more so resembles a hermit rat than Meinya, and actually shares some similarities to Cube from Puella Magi Madoka Magica. It has an affinity for climbing on people, just like Meinya though. In the 7th layer, there are these cat-like creatures with fluffy tails and this masked appearance, but again, the only comparison is their size. Perhaps Bondrewd used a creature we haven't seen, or has spliced an amalgamation of creatures together and implanted Ilim's soul in that new creation. The name Child of Change also, to me, feels like Bondrewd has had a hand in changing the life form to create Meinya. Yes, he changed Ilim, a child, into Meinya, and at the same time could have changed the biology of various animal fetuses in that same creation. I'd say that if I had to choose, that a Nderi could have been involved in Bondrewd's funny homunculus experimentation. They're very docile, they seem very easily able to breed, they remind me of hamsters or similarly small rodents, so maybe they reproduce like those creatures and have like a million babies at once. Bondrewd would have an abundance of fetuses for testing purposes. In conclusion, Meinya is all but confirmed to have been a human girl named Ilim, whose soul was then implanted within an animal fetus. What he was intending to do with Meinya, maybe he still believed that a Juusou could help with navigating the curse, like Prushka and Rico do, maybe? It would be interesting if Bondrewd was able to replicate this experiment. Is he able to create another Meinya Ilim? Like, would it look the same? Are these creatures able to breed? Or is Meinya a single, sterile, unique little guy that has one of the best designs I've ever seen? Bondrewd created a living plush toy and I love him. Not Bondrewd, I love Meinya. The Faraway nest is, as of chapter 69, still only alluded to by Cravely and Tapaste. Initially in my iceberg video, I theorized that the nest is part of or is a shaft that is used by the Sakawatari bird to ascend between layers. I suppose it makes sense, right? The Sakawatari is this enormous bird and is theorized to live as low as the 7th layer, but it ascends to the surface to hunt. It is said to appear every 2,000 years, and its sighting is rumored to herald the oncoming 2,000-year cycle. Tapaste and Cravely get separated at one point in the 6th layer. Cravely is persisting despite his dire situation. Yet, Tapaste is upset, and I think she knows that he's in more trouble than he thinks. As their radios are breaking up, he says, "Let's meet up in the nest." To motivate himself, he sings a portion of Harimari's song, which mentions a distant or faraway nest. Soon after, he ends up succumbing to his injuries. I'm proposing a theory that this faraway nest is the nest of the Sakawatari, as it is below the 6th layer. There's also the line of Tapaste asking, "Any chance we're going via that front place?" And Cravely says, "You really think Dawn would let us through? We're going by way of the nest," which further implies the idea that there's some sort of shaft or something that passes through layers. Tapaste and Cravely also seem to be in a hurry to descend. The group the two are a part of is called Undernest as well, and they're said to serve the Abyssal Shrine Maiden. The Shrine Maiden seems to be very significant to the Abyss, and probably would have knowledge on the 2,000-year cycle. The Sakawatari could be spiritually connected to the Shrine Maiden. It could be an avatar of her influence, a personal pet, simply residing in the same area, perhaps? I also believe that the Shrine Maiden may not be too far away from this faraway nest, but I don't think she resides there. Cravely said to meet up in the nest, not meet up at the Abyssal Shrine or something to that effect. This leads me to the belief that the Shrine Maiden is not in the nest. Considering their group name, maybe the Shrine Maiden is right under the nest. The Sakawatari could be protecting the Shrine Maiden like her baby. Okay, so I doodled like what the shaft would be like. Like this wouldn't obviously be where it begins and ends, or if it's like a continuous thing. But like my idea is that the Sakawatari, its nest is like in the 7th layer or whatever, and it would fly all the way up, woo, and it would go all the way up to Orth to go hunt, and go all the way back down, and where that nest is, underneath the nest, boom, that's the Shrine Maiden, and their friends, and yeah, I solved it. Boom, series solved. I'm right. This is my own personal theory that I'm not sure anyone else talked about. I personally believe that the Abyss is sort of speedrunning evolution, if you will, rapidly creating new life forms from humans. Consider everything involving Idumui and Idoburu. The Cradle of Desire, a relic of the Abyss, can deform and corrupt the bodies of adults that touch it. Their limbs become woody and tree-like. Their desires are too complex to fulfill. If the cradle means to push forward a new creature being created, it could become confused by the internal desires of the people that it is changing, and simply defaults to plants, a form of life much simpler than an animal. No need to worry about them moving around or anything, just add them to the foliage. When it comes to Idumui, a child with simple desires, the cradle taps into her inherent wish to give birth and please her family, and build a new family of her own. The children she gives birth to are not humans, though, but legomorphic creatures not dissimilar to hermit rats, but not exactly like them either. They could be considered some new creature. Due to Idamui's simple desire of, I want to be able to give birth just like how my family wanted me to, her mind did not consider the intricacies of what a new life would need to live, and it stopped at the idea of producing new life. Thus, Idamui's children were unsustainable creatures. The basic 6th layer forms of Narehate, being what I call the amorphous hollows, seem to be similar unsustainable creatures. The curse is trying to create something new, but it seems to be too much, and a human body breaks down as it tries to undergo the stress of the curse. Only Nanachi and Bondrewd have had enough of the curse taken off of them to be able to handle this rapid bodily mutation. I believe that the curse is attempting to change humans into creatures that are perhaps more sustainable for the Abyss, but it is almost trying too hard. As for Juusou, those who were born as Narehate, I don't have too much to say as of chapter 69, but if they're born or conceived in the Abyss, I would argue that the curse, the force field, or some other entity encompassing the Abyss is trying to push for more of this rapid evolution. If Juusou are indeed born this way, my reasoning for why Riko was born human could be one of two ideas. She was conceived in Orth and thus not under the jurisdiction of the curse and did not become a Juusou, or her stillbirth was the result of her body not being able to handle this idea of being changed by the curse while still in the womb. I am realizing now that Srajo had said that Juusou births are exceedingly rare, so that's probably the answer, and I just didn't think of that at first. Whoops. There are instances of personal desires manifesting into physical form. First, with Idoburu, once Idumui absorbs the wishes of Ganja, they transform into bodies that reflect their ideas. Enbelitz, for example, is said to value things running on top of them, like a mattress, I guess. In an interview, Tsukushi stated that Pakuyan wished for a body as small as Idamui, a big and pretty eye, and to keep the same tendencies from before. Idamui is the most obvious example of a transformation based on personal desire. We've discussed how she wished to be able to give birth, as well as provide health and home for her loved ones. Her body then changed to reflect those desires. Though, even before stepping out into the 6th layer, we've already met a pair of Narehate whose desires have altered their physical form. Nanachi, back when she was human, was known to smell horrible and repel others, leading to social isolation. She wished for friendship, for people to like her. Upon turning into a Narehate, Nanachi now has soft and plush fur, and a scent described as irresistibly fragrant. Fun fact, there is an official Nanachi-scented perfume meant to mimic the smell of the base of Nanachi's ears. According to the wiki, it's caramelic, similar to cotton candy, so Nanachi seems sugary. This seems overwhelming to me, and anyway, I just think of like the Germa bit with the Fritos dog smell whenever Nanachi's smell is discussed.
Savory dog sauce. You're a psycho, what?
So, part of Nanachi was changed due to her wish to be inviting and smelling nice. What about Midi, though? Midi wished to live, to stay with Nanachi. Midi, in her Narehate form, is indestructible. She's effectively immortal. She will live no matter what, staying with Nanachi until meeting her end due to the incinerator, the essential tool that rewrites the rules of the Abyss. Nanachi wanted Midi to stay with her, and Midi wanted to stay with Nanachi. Yet Nanachi realized that immortality was a prison to Midi, and that she would pass someday and leave Midi behind. When Nanachi and Midi were transformed, their inner desires were given physical shape. So, why would the Abyss be creating new forms of life? Is it doing it on purpose? The idea of the Abyss having a will of its own is an idea that's been brought up several times. Have you ever heard of a vivarium? Wikipedia defines these as, quote, an area, usually enclosed, for keeping and raising animals or plants for observation or research. Aquariums and terrariums are two subtypes. Now, the Abyss isn't completely enclosed. You can theoretically leave, but it's difficult, to say the least. And past the 6th layer, you can't reasonably leave. The Abyss could be some sort of enclosure to study, raise, and produce new primeval creatures. Whoever's in charge, whether they be true residents, regs creators, or something else, they are trying new methods to cultivate life forms. The 6th layer's curse could be one way to create them, and Cradles of Desire are another way, and Juusou even a third. The interference units would be the eyes of whoever's operating the Abyssal Vivarium and keeping track of the new creatures and plants. However, they've lost contact with their original operators. Perhaps there were different bases on each layer for the original operators to communicate with each other, and with the interference units. Maybe this is connected to something like whatever the FEP founded, and that's where they had the souls that they would then do experiments with. I'm not sure. But why would these operators be doing this? I don't know, some people just do things because they can. Oh my gosh, this feels like the end of an era. I have been working on this video for quite literally, like a year and a half or something. Like most of that was like spent writing the script and then rewriting it because I put off the script until the new chapters came out. And then like I'm still in college. I'm doing a bunch of stuff. I gotta find the time to actually make these videos. And then I got distracted by a bunch of other projects. I did leave out a few things. I had a whole section on Clawbot. And then chapter 70 dropped, and that last page, oh boy, I don't know where to begin with that, so I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna scrap the whole Clawbot thing. Maybe when we get more answers on her, then I can make like a whole separate video or something. Man, there's like always something so new. I basically reread this manga like every few weeks, and there's like something new around every corner. There's always like a new interpretation of things. There's like a new little hint. It's so rich and, if you'll excuse the pun, multi-layered. If you were to ask me my favorite theories, my favorite ideas, I'm very biased towards the idea of the Abyssal Vivarium. It's my theory, it's my baby. But I do feel like the idea of like interference units being these observers getting data for some central, I don't know, like research base, I feel like I'm on the right track with that. There's also like the idea of like where the curse originates from. I also love the idea that the abyss is a living creature. I love the idea of like these like massive organic bodies. Like, I recently got back into like creepypastas, like the Diania house. I want to say the guy's name is Davis Morgan, or was it Jaybird? One of those two made a really good video on the Diania house, and then I watched creepcasts. So, big messed up biological house, love that.
Eat me like a bug.
Something like Mystery Flesh Pit. Oh, even bigger. I love that. It's terrifying. And the abyss possibly being, like, at least in part organic, as evidenced by, like, how fleshy the 7th layer is. Absolutely love that. I love big, messed up, like, monster things. Like, I wouldn't even say monster, just, like, megalithic implies that it's made of stone, but, like, these, like, mega organic things beyond our comprehension. It truly feels eldritch in the same sense of like classic Lovecraft. We're glimpsing at something completely beyond our comprehension, in the same way that if an ant was suddenly given all the thoughts, experiences, perspectives of a human, but then had to go back to living life as an ant, like how do you cope with that? How do you deal with the world around you knowing that there's something much bigger out there, but you still can't wrap your mind around it? That's the idea to me of like the abyss being this massive organic thing. What kind of life form would it even be? But that's not even confirmed. I just think it's really neat. I also really subscribe to the idea that the Sakawatari is connected to the Shrine Maiden. I feel like that's gonna be answered very soon, whether or not it's true. We just have to wait for the next chapter. And I am suffering in purgatory of just waiting for new chapters. Having an inconsistent schedule is a little annoying, because it's like, oh, I'm looking forward to it, but I don't know when it's gonna drop. The only other manga I'm following is Shiba Inu Rooms, which is the cutest thing I've ever read. Please read it. It's about like this apartment of ghost dogs, and it's really funny and thoughtful. I would love to make a video on it, but I haven't been able to find good digital copies. I'm getting off track. If you were drawing anything while watching this video, I would love for you to show me. Please tag me. I hope those little dings weren't annoying. There's this one video I watched where the creator did a similar thing, like they had a little noise go off whenever there was text on screen, and I found that to be very helpful, because I also listened to it like a podcast, so I was thinking like, oh, do the same thing. Please tell me your thoughts, please be respectful, please stay on topic as always. I really want the comments to be friendly and open. Please don't be mean to other people about their theories. It's supposed to be for fun. It's all fun, so yeah, keep it fun. Thank you for watching. Thank you so much. I make these videos all on my own, so I would really appreciate like interaction of some form, liking the video, commenting, subscribing maybe. I mostly have been making videos on Maiden Abyss, but I want to branch out and make stuff on other things that I enjoy. If you want to stick around for that, I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a nice day. Bye-bye.